Thank you all for sharing those announcements. I'm sure in April during Earth Month, there's a lot of great opportunities for us to get out there. And hopefully this will not just be, a 1 month thing. Used to it was just one day and then the Earth Week, and now it's a month. Hopefully this month will be what fuels our tanks and inspires us and encourages us to be creation care folks all year round. So anyway, well, tonight we've got a very special guest. I'm really excited to have Paul Helmer here with us, and his presentation is Touch of Distinction, Color, and Design. So I want to share a little bit about Paul. Mr. Helmer's premise is that much of today's landscaping is clumsy and only adds fluff to a property. Green landscaping takes into consideration principles of property siting, indigenous plant material, ground covers, cutting wind, drying hot and cold pathways, and relating to neighborhood properties. As a past architect of the KC Landmarks Commission, Paul makes use of historical knowledge. As a landscapist and a degreed architect, he has over 45 years of experience in renovation, restoration of homes, and environmental conservation. This expertise has taken Paul in the direction of doing renovations and landscaping the correct way, which has warranted the reception of prestigious awards, including being a community catalyst for revitalizing Kansas City neighborhoods. So Paul has a vast knowledge of homes, not just the interior and not just the exterior, but everything and how it ties together. And I think that is very important, and I'm really excited to introduce you to Paul.
Thank you, Chad. Rather than celebrating Earth Day, Earth Week, Earth Month, I prefer celebrating Earth Lifetime. What do you think about that? Changing our whole attitude so that we can actually make a difference in the world. I don't know if you realize that they claim that the plastic bags we have can go around the entire globe 4 times. And that's just the last estimate. They're probably more. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not close to 8 times now. So if you can make a difference by refusing plastic bags and then getting paper bags, bringing your material bags into the grocery store, wherever you go, please consider doing that because it will make a difference to Mother Earth. So now we're going to get into green landscaping, and I don't mean with a paintbrush. So this is my company, Touch of Distinction, Color, and Design. And a lot of these are buildings around. You'll see different things here, like the grass plugs, the different landscapes, different buildings. It's the plaza. Again, coloration, things like that. And we'll get into that in just a few minutes. The famous quote of Chief Seattle is, "Earth does not belong to man. Man belongs to the earth." So what a difference that is than us that think that we can take possession of the earth. We need to fracture off our piece of the action, put up our fences, keep people away because we own this turf right here. And the American Indian thought quite a bit differently than that because we're supposedly stewards of the earth, not owners of it. So let's think about it in a little bit of a different sort of a way. From a Christian standpoint, we might say, in my experience, the role of Christians in the environmental conservation is deeply rooted in the biblical mandate to care for the earth. Scripture provides numerous examples that highlight the responsibility of humans to serve as stewards of the planet. Something is going wrong. If any of you have been to kind of the Southwest, they have piñons there, which is a type of kind of a scrub brush type of evergreen. Piñons are dying in New Mexico. Pine forests are being infested with parasites, and they are dying. I think even in Kansas City, we can see trees that they're not even that old, but you see them die, a street tree or something like that. So something is not quite right, because when I was younger, because I did used to be younger at one time, I would see things last so much longer. I would see winters that were, they really did have to have snow days when I was growing up. Things have been changing just in my own lifetime. I've seen them change. Let us build, this is by quote of the very famous author John Ruskin. Let us build in such a way that those who come after us will say, see what our ancestors have built for us. We hope that we don't leave a legacy like this little girl here, kind of grimacing and kind of upset, dead fish, straggly dead trees, a very silent looking lake there. Be a part of the change. Be a part of green landscaping. Ask, what type plants are appropriate for this location? Does it have sun there? Does it have shade? Is it mixed sunlight? What type of plants are indigenous? And in case you don't know what indigenous is, it means what is something that grows typically in this area. Don't plant palm trees and expect them to live. Don't plant certain things. Don't plant banana trees and things like that, unless you're going to bring them in, unless you have an atrium or something like that. Let's come up with green ideas. And why we do this is because it saves on plant costs. It will help the environment, and it will be more healing because it'll actually be there to bring about healing. And my daughter really gets into healing herbs and healing type of potions, which can be even ground up bananas and ground up things that you put together, and you feed people with those things rather than plasticized prepared foods that come from McDonald's, etc. What should we not, why should we not do this? If you look at this hillside here, what's the purpose of this slope? Can you recreate upon here? Can you play baseball on this? Can you play croquet here? I think the croquet ball is going to keep going downhill. I think you're going to fall over trying to catch the ball, etc. If you play baseball here. Football is almost impossible here because the team down here will always win. The team up here will never win. So we need to figure out what should we do with something like this. Perhaps we need to think about things like thickets, ground covers. And a lot of different ground covers, not just periwinkle or something like that, but there are different types of monkey grass and different types of ground covers that get thicker and thicker all the time. And once they get established, they tend to choke out weeds. Because everybody thinks if you plant too many plants, if you plant too many flowers, etc., oh boy, you're really in for a lot of weeding, etc. But that's not necessarily true. Because if you get a good stand of ground covers, it quite often fends for itself, particularly monkey grass or different types of lorope. Yard waste, what do you do with it? Open burning of vegetative waste. Um, I have a small burning bin in my backyard. I don't use it a whole lot, but regarding all of the debris that we think we have to pull out of the yard and rake every fall, and then we send it out to the yard waste. You don't have to do all of that. You can crumple those leaves up, create a yard waste bin in your own yard. You can even burn some of this too. And it's not as bad as you may think to burn waste, etc. In Missouri allows open burning of yard waste from sites provided that it originates and is burned on the same premise. Materials such as tires or used oil may not be used to burn. And we have here that in Kansas, rules and regulations regarding burning yard waste can vary depending upon the city or county that you reside in. However, the general answer is that burning yard waste is regulated and often restricted in many areas of Kansas. So just check with your local government. And heaven knows sometimes people will be having their hot dogs out there and then they'll have charcoal, but then they'll put some yard waste with it a little bit too. And you can get rid of a lot of stuff in a positive way, and it's not necessarily negative if you burn the right kind of a thing that is called a clean fire. The American Indian used to burn a lot of the open prairie, and then a lot of farmers would do the same thing. And it's because they knew how to manage the environment. And it's too bad that we have gone through a lot of things where we've ended up with the Dust Bowl and things that have been very damaging to the environment. So let's try to think from more of an environmental standpoint. Burn it or other ways. Now what? Ashes, roses, lavender, Argulera, basil, phlox, sweet cherry, asparagus, apple tree, strawberries, they all like wood ash. And if you have old bananas, or maybe your wife or your husband bought too many bananas and you're getting sick and tired of bananas or a certain thing, maybe even certain types of fruit, you can bury them in the ground because they have potassium, calcium, magnesium. You'd be surprised what you can achieve by actually putting yard waste and those coffee grounds that you've got, don't just throw them down, as trash. Instead, put them in your yard because they'll actually be a type of fertilizer. You don't have to go to the lawn and garden to always get fertilizer. So let's think a little more positively. Okay, you need to look at this picture here in fall, winter. Don't overclean your yard and regarding decaying plants, etc. Because did you realize there's a lot of larvae in the ground and then pupa that will be butterflies the next year? And if you overly clean it, you're getting rid of butterflies and bees and things like that that will come back the next year. Sometimes people, they don't realize how overly, it's really not the inside of your house. And you don't need to get the vacuum cleaner outside in the yard and start vacuuming everything. And I see some people's yards where it almost looks like, they've used a vacuum cleaner. And then I'm so tired of seeing these giant Home Depot paper bags this tall, just chuck full of all of these leaves and kind of what they raked up in the yard because it's not necessary to do all that. In fact, you're getting rid of a lot of the nutrients. And people that mow their yard and they bag all of their grass clippings, and then the next year they have chemicals put on their lawn to bring it back to life because they got rid of the grass clippings that would decay and actually enrich the soil. It doesn't make sense. So let's use these between here and here. It's called a brain, and we need to use it. So uh, possum is shown here. Here's the wings of butterfly and moths, and then that's a bee in the middle there. So let's not overly clean everything because it's not your living room to clean the carpet. Jerry Baker is one of my favorite guys and who gets into organic gardening. I think he's dead now, but for the longest time, he was the purveyor of information of how to put different types of things from the house, maybe soap suds and honey and then vinegar, things like that. It was never manufactured chemicals. And over here, for those of you who are not here, you need to get here right now because I've got some free Jerry Baker magazines and I've got some other freebies. I hope that you who are here, and there's 7 of you here, be nice for you to take a bunch of these. And if you could use them at some of your other meetings in the future, you're more than welcome to clear that table of all of these magazines. Very good lawn and garden magazines. So I hope you avail yourself of that. Protect your organic garden. Like if you have things like rabbits that like to chew on your plants here, you put chicken wire and kind of bury it in the ground. This will tend to prevent the the rabbits from chewing on your plants. Sometimes you can kind of wire it together at the top too. So anyone know that marigolds planted around tomato plants will tend to keep rabbits and different critters away too, because they don't like the smell of marigolds. In fact, you may not even like the smell of marigolds, but they certainly are pretty. Pardon? I do too. Do you like the smell of it? It's okay. Plant garlic and wormwood plants around the area of your yard containing the hosta plants. Again, rabbits don't like that. Place sweet gum pods. Do any of you know what sweet gum pods are? Yeah, they're round and they have little spikes sticking out of them. In fact, the city of Kansas City, I'm not sure if St. Joseph ever did this, but in certain neighborhoods in Kansas City, they planted street trees that were lined with sweet gum, and then they're reaping the repercussions of what they sometimes refer to as, uh, let's see, foot trippers for older people that walk along, and then they have these little gall-like things with spikes on them. Very easily, you can fall on them. So in Hyde Park, there's one street I know of, and they're cutting down. They're wonderful. It's kind of offensive to look at them cutting down these full mature trees, but I understand why they're cutting them down. And what have told people on that street is the city should have thought about this a long time ago. Planted replacement, maybe something like sugar maples between those trees. And as soon as those got bigger, they would have cut down the sweet gum tree, which is an offensive type of tree. Other type of offensive trees are, let's see, walnut trees are wonderful in the countryside. But if you don't want to go skipping down the street and falling on top of all these walnuts, you probably better not have a tree in your neighborhood around your house, because they're a real problem. And there are other trees that are real problems too. One that I particularly dislike, it grows very fast. It's a silver maple. So the unfortunate thing about silver maple is they're prone to breakage in ice storms and in windstorms. So sugar maple are more of a sure branch type tree. Oak trees are a sure branch type tree, although I probably would never plant an oak tree in my yard because I don't like, squirrels are pretty, but as far as a lot of people call them, they're a rat with a fluffy tail. So, and they can get in your attic and cause damage, which we have had some of that happen with us. It emits its own type of chemical into the ground. And in our own neighborhood, there's a vacant lot, and it has a really big, it must be this big around the trunk, and it's a black walnut. And then there's a maple tree trying to grow in the parkway over here on the adjacent street. And it just doesn't look very happy, you know. You can always tell if someone or some plant or some animal isn't happy. This is not a happy camper. I have thought about have kind of an ornery streak down my back. I have thought about girdling the walnut. Do any of you know what girdling is? Here's the trunk of the tree. You get a saw, you saw all the way around the tree. It will die because the cadmium layer, the outer layer of the tree, is where the nutrients and the moisture and all of that goes up and down. It's not in the middle. That has already kind of solidified and become dormant. Trees, when they grow, they keep growing out and out and out. That's why tree trunks get extremely big. So if you cut the outside layer, it doesn't have any circulation anymore. So the tree just dies. And I've thought about doing that, but then orneriness hasn't gotten totally a hold of me yet. So I'm going to leave it be, at least for the time being. New products, life extenders for wood decks means less cracking and checking. So there are things that are nutrient rich and not invasive to put on your wood deck so that you don't have to rip up the whole deck and throw it away and then put another one down. Just keep doing that every 10 years or so. Tree shrub food, parasite control, weed controls, systemic. Systemic is one thing that I tend to recommend to a lot of people. A systemic is something that you put in the ground, it absorbs into the plant, and any kind of a parasite that's chewing on it will say, oh my gosh, this doesn't taste very good. Ugh. So it's not the kind of thing that is you spray this poison on the outside and you maybe are getting it on other things around you or animals get it or whatever. So it's something, there are good, well-tested environmental type things that you can use today. So you just have to read the label. And these phones really are pretty phenomenal. The information you can get out of these phones is just phenomenal. So I encourage you to do your research. Um, again, read books and use green products. Yard waste, burn it, and you have it. And now what should I do with it? Have any of you ever heard of Missouri Organic?
Yeah.
Okay, you've heard of it. Do you ever go there?
Yeah.
There's more than one location. The biggest one is, I think it's getting close to Raytown. Yeah, you can actually go by. Usually it helps if you have a truck or know someone with a truck, because I do it quite often with my own business. We do install landscaping as well as design it, but then we will sometimes deliver um, bulk load of wood chips, and the wood chips then actually keep the moisture in the ground so you're not watering every day when in the summer when it's kind of dry and hot. So there are a lot of good things to do. Wood chips are important for the environment too, especially if you don't have a fairly solid coating of dried leaves. Use green principles and plant indigenous. This is in Kansas City. It's a water garden at 34th and Forest. And these plants are all indigenous and they're meant to grow in kind of a bog-like location. This is actually a swale here. So this is dipped down whenever it rains rather than the water running along here and going into culverts and then having to go off somewhere miles and miles away into streams in the Missouri River ultimately. The water is standing here. The curbing has deliberate cuts in it like this. So when it rains, the water's running along and then it goes in here. Uh, have any of you noticed that in some of the yards, like, well, parking lots, they're starting more and more, and a lot of cities are requiring this. They have these sunken gardens in a sense, and so the water drains off into that and it goes into the underground aquifers of filling them back up again. Again, rather than dumping into streams in Kansas City and dumping into the Missouri River, dumping into the Kansas River, etc. So it's good kind of a thing because it goes into the environment. A lot of you may remember, I think it was like 30 years ago or so, the Country Club Plaza flooded. Let's see, indigenous, these are all indigenous plants. Right here, you have a bank. Why do we, again, like that earlier picture of the slope by the suburban home, why would you want to mow this? Because all it is a accident ready to happen where you might slip and then all of a sudden you've cut your foot or cut it off or something like that. Informal but cared for. These plants here are natural. This one is trimmed more. This is some of our landscaping. This is a house at Pennsylvania and Meyer Boulevard. We did the colors on this one too. Indigenous mulches, don't use cypress mulches because do any of you, you know the reason why, don't you? Okay.
You kill the cypress trees,
to help protect. From an environmental standpoint, I'm going to have to give you all good grades at the end of this class. A plan. Usually you start with a plan. Otherwise, you're just kind of guessing at it. This is a tight landscape in Kansas City, Missouri. Kansas City, Kansas might have, this might be a few areas in maybe close to downtown, Overland Park, et cetera, where the houses are closer together, older suburban communities, where it's a small, it's probably 40 feet, something like that. Here's the house. This is the driveway our design called for. Tearing up the concrete here, you could tell there had been a garage back here. They asked me to design a garage for them. So I designed this polygonal garage that does this. So again, permeable brick paving here, and this is stone with moss growing around it. And so what people do is they come in, park in the garage, they back out here, and then they go straight out here. It's a nice way to solve a problem where if you're a bad driver, my wife tells me I'm a bad driver, you don't back into a fence, you don't back into the corner of the house, you don't run over someone at the street, etc., which you might get a ticket or get incarcerated for that. Yeah, which my wife made me get a truck that has that because she said, Paul, you need this because you're a bad driver. I showed you this a little bit earlier on the first slide. This is called pavecrete, and it is concrete modules this big. What? You don't have to always shovel snow off a driveway, although you can use a blower or something like that. Or you can lightly. A lot of people, they really do have these blowing machines that clear it that way rather than scooping it off. But a lot of times I advise people to put in if they have, there some houses where there's 3 or 4 car garage attached to a house, and I have invented the term there's a house attached to a garage rather than a garage attached to a house. So it's really overdone because sometimes if you look at it dimensionally, like half of the yard is concrete going up to the house. So many times when I do design work for a house like that, I have one lane going in and then it veers over to the 3 cars, and then I plant this peninsula that comes over, and I even plant some trees there because if there's, to me, anything offensive, it's when you have this huge garage and it's kind of like here's the garage and here's the house. You have a hard time seeing the house because of the monstrous garage. And if they have too much concrete, I often say, well, why don't we also demolish part of the driveway and put this pavecrete there? Because you usually it ends up that one garage has your lawnmower, your riding lawnmower and things like that in it. So you really don't need to have 3 lanes of concrete cleared every winter all the time. Again, over here you have different type of paving materials, etc. And this shows a bank here sloping down. And again, it's a fairly steep bank. I'll show you another picture of it. But why would you want to mow that and have problems with that? And then this has lots of ground covers, lots of plant materials. This slope, the sidewalk, happens to go uphill like this. And so I actually made the sidewalk do an S shape here. The sidewalk used to, and the steps used to go like this. It had more steps because it had more elevation to go up when it was straight. Because I did this, I was able to eliminate two to three steps because of that. No one ever says, I want more steps to get up to my house. No, I've never heard anyone say that. Probably never will hear that, will I? And this is the house that I did that with. And So you can see how nice this looks. This is a terrace across here, another partial terrace. Stone steps, you will not have concrete steps. Quite often you've probably seen them where they suddenly crack and then this one's moved here and this one's still straight. When you have something like this, it will not be that way. It won't be a problem. Again, looking closely at that, there's a lot of ground creeping. Phlox is a wonderful ground cover. Periwinkle here. This adds color. This is the pygmy red barberry, and it loves, all of these plants love locations like this.
I look at that and I think there's too much bare ground where it's still going to run off.
No, it really is. Oh, I'm going to take you back. I'm going to prove you wrong. It won't take long before this is totally filled in.
This,
Yes. And then this, I put this here deliberately. It forms like a stone curbing because if you just had dirt here, the dirt tends to wash on top of the sidewalk and create a messy sidewalk. So sometimes I even bury it in the ground, but this is a stop for the earth. And this ground, if you know much about periwinkle, it every year gets a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. So you're wrong. This will be perfect for holding the soil in place. And creeping phlox every year gets a little bit bigger too. This will ultimately all touch each other. Pardon? No, they tend to like more sunlight, but this is kind of mixed, so it actually works well with either one. Periwinkle tends to like a little more shade, but it will grow in a little more sun. It's not per se just for shade gardens. And then anything that has a lot of flowers like phlox tends to be a little bit more sunny, but it will bloom in a semi sun. This is another one. This is in a town home. This is the back of their yard close to the plaza. And they started out with this concrete here, and then this here, 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 and here are the posts that are holding up the second floor balcony. And they wanted me to do something to make this attractive rather than unattractive and growing weeds. So they had some decorative features, a fountain, they had different urns, and I put the sweep in here, which again is grass. These are concrete blocks, and they're, again, it's permeable because the water goes between them into the earth. And we planted these trees, which are small type trees. Have you ever heard of understory trees? Dogwoods and red buds, white buds, certain type of trees in nature, they grow underneath big shade trees. And so that's what these are, because we didn't want to plant giant shade trees that would grow into the building. So here's according to scale, according to the way the plants will look and what it actually makes something that's kind of small. It breaks it up into three separate elements, and there's a lot of interesting things there. So it's almost surprising to people how much is there in spite of the fairly small scale of the yard. And we even put lights in too. Nice features. So here's the overall look. These are ceramic, fountain here, a sphere here, seating, the brick, etc.
when you design, you try to go with odd numbers like 3,
Yes.
1.
Yeah, you never go with even numbers unless it's symmetrical. Then you could end up with one here and one here. But a design criteria is typically you use odd numbers. You're pretty darn smart. Okay, we'll have to give you an A plus.
No,
That's right.
less and less so.
This is in, I think it's in Leawood, and we did the colors, but we also did their landscaping. And you can see that it's looking kind of interesting with these different details. They had this already there, and I thought it was nice. It actually is their name chiseled into the stone. This is the back of the same house, and they had water. It must be almost a story higher back here. And all the water was running to the house and into the foundation and into the basement. Not a good thing. We put a swale across here. Does anyone know what a swale is? It's like a gutter system. You literally put a gutter in. And so we created a swale that was about here and it went all the way around the house. It was planted with soil. We put sod in it. So when you mow it, you just mow it, and you'll see pictures of it.
It's the same name.
Yeah. And this is a little pond here. It has a water feature there. And then we have, again, builds this up, which makes it again, this drops off. This is actually for burning things, a little fire pit. And then this again lets moisture into the ground. And this is a pathway to the side of the house. This is the garage. And then all these nice plant materials. And the variation in plant material and textures is very naturalizing. And this is a close-up of that. Again, you can see the pathway, etc. And I always advise against putting concrete sidewalks in because, again, you're just covering the earth. This allows moisture, and the grass will, we just put this in. So the grass ultimately grew across here, grows between these stones too. And I've always been good at puzzles, so pretty good at putting puzzles together, shapes like that. Turned out very nice. Again, fun ways of floating things around. I love shapes that kind of meander. Mother Nature is better than straight lines of Germany or someplace like that. We're not all in the military kind of a thing. And this lady she still lived in Kansas City, Missouri, but she was real close to Raytown. Here she is. She had all the neighbors. She called me up and said, Paul, can you help me with my yard? Because all my neighbors contribute when we have these big gully washer rains to my yard. And if washing my dirt out. So at the end of a big rain, when it dries out a little, I have to go to the bottom of the hill, which is like 2 blocks away, and dig up my lawn and bring it back up the hill. What can you do, Paul? So we worked with her, and next to this tree, you can't see it here, but this is a pin oak tree. The earth was washed out below the roots. It was about 2 foot where you could see the roots up here, nothing below it. It had been that bad. And then she contributed to her own problem because this is the drainage from her house. So I got an extension to bring this out. So it wasn't contributing to this. So this would take this way into the yard. And then we started doing all of this. We got river rock, and we got, let's see, flagstone, and we got, let's see, different types of limestone. You never put stone in if you have a problem with water flat because it'll just start tipping it the other way. You put it like this. So when the water comes, it goes up and over like that. And then if you do it enough, it's starting to slow the water down. Also, by making this as wide as we did, we actually have different beds of water here. It's not just one gully wash of water. It breaks it up because we actually, believe it or not, there's shrubs in here. There's ground covers in here. There's a lot of monkey grass and lorope that has fairly long roots in it, and it will hang on, and grass will not hang on because the roots are too shallow. It'll just pluck it out of the ground. But something like certain type of ground covers and lorope and monkey grass will hold tight. So
In the oval picture, right in the middle, that tree is the same one as over here that had.
yes,
Engine.
yes, it is.
To the roots. I mean,
We filled it back in. Yeah. The tree had adjusted to megalomania and terrible disturbances, and so I went to be alive. I'm not going to die. Do something for me. So anyway, what happened was after we got this done, she's got phone calls more than once from neighbors across the street. Oh, Deborah, you've got to come and see this. Your yard is so beautiful. The waterfall going down the hill is so beautiful. You've got to come over and see this. So they made her come across the street when it was raining so that she could see her waterfall coming down. She didn't have to go to Colorado or someplace like that. She could do it across the street from her. And this is in Westwood, Kansas, and we put lots of grouping of shrubs. Again, here's a walkway to the back. We eliminated a lot of grass mowing. And this is a one-car garage here. She wanted to be able to park over here, and I said, no, you're not going to put concrete here. We're going to put brick in here. We extended it over here, kept the single lane in. And if you look right here, here is this part of the driveway. And I said, I will not put brick here. I will not put concrete there. You'll be driving over these flagstones and then parking there. So she could park here and park in the garage. Then we put a low stone wall out here, which you see here. Again, it made it quite attractive and ornamentally putting boulders in the yard and some of these flagstones too. It turned out quite nicely. And this is in Overland Park. Create privacy. You can do things like this is Rose Tree of Sharon. They can get quite large and thick. They also tend to replant themselves quite a bit. So they have privacy from back here. This is the house where real highly elevated, and the house is down here, and all the water was going down to the house. This is against the back fence. Then these are other plants. These are hostas again, and then planting against the fence. Yeah. Permascape, it's an edible, low maintenance that uses the principles of it being edible, good pest management. You put things in like birdhouses and shrubbery for nesting. Don't over trim your bushes, etc. Water features, bird bath retention ponds, and do as much as you can with soil fertility and lawn eradication. I'm going to try to skip through this a good bit because Paul tends to overtalk and you're probably all getting ready to fall asleep. So I'm going to try to be a little bit more fast. Isn't that right, Chad? Okay. This is a permascape. There's edibles in here and then ornamentals too. And real nice plant material. You can mix it back and forth so you can have something that's both aesthetic as well as edible. Eliminates standing water for mosquitoes, clean your gutters, and you can have fish ponds, which they eat mosquito larvae. Trim your vegetation so it doesn't get too overly loose and allow for mosquitoes. Tailor your insect control. I'm going to skip a little bit of this. This is a house on Ward Parkway. This is euonymus. It tends to like to grow up on trees and things. And we trimmed it to be a little bit more full and less liked by mosquitoes. This is a pond. It's called a lap pool. Notice there's no sidewalk on each side of it. It's a lap pool. So we eliminated quite a bit of concrete. And then, of course, we have flagstone here, which allows moisture to go in the ground. Lots of beautiful plant material, so you don't even kind of feel like you're tucked in a neighborhood. It's very beautiful and aesthetic looking. And then at the end of it is a pergola and an oriental bench down here. This is a little wading pond. I like to do frilly things here once in a while too. It's the front of the same house, and you can see combination of formal shrubbery here and then more loose shrubbery. This is at Meyer and Pennsylvania. Another view. This is in Overland Park, before and after. I said to them, do you have anything against people visiting you because you've got a fence in front of the front door? It looks very uninviting by putting a railing here. And now that you're here, don't come in. So we removed the railing here, made the steps rather than going to the side. Come out here and then come out toward the street, and then lots of plantings in here, framing the house with shrubbery. The plants are not tied against the foundation. Sometimes people with their plantings, if they do it the normal way that housing developers do, we who are into, I think, good landscaping principles refer to it as a house sitting in a salad rather than something good. So here it is happening and in place. Period landscaping, ask what style is your home, what plants are appropriate, what color plants, how elaborate should I get? So this is a Queen Anne Victorian. It's actually a new house, believe it or not. And then this is a bungalow. Again, the landscaping is a little bit different. Victorians like eccentric things, like even the trimming of these shrubs in these very unusual manners. This is more of an English manor type house. Again, the landscaping's a little more naturalistic looking. This is a Victorian cottage. Notice the details of that. This draws your attention from the street and it frames and draws your eye to the front door. This is a townhome in Overland Park. And this was nothing until we did all of this. We put a big boulder in here. This is a Japanese maple here, and then lots of plant material. Ward Parkway again. And things like planting these potato vines and things like that, when the wind is gusting up and down the street, this tends to break the wind velocity.
We once tried potato vines and the squirrels just decimated.
You need a cat that decimates squirrels. A cat that decimates, or a dog that decimates squirrels. Okay. Anyway, this is the same property. We put an S-shaped flagstone pathway. And again, if the more you make things straight, the more you can create a gust for wind shooting at the house. This breaks the monotony because wind doesn't normally go like that. How elaborate should I get? You know, this is a house in Fairway, Kansas, and you couldn't even see where the front door was, so we cut through this and opened this up so they had an opening. And then there's a nice stone wall here. Why have a nice stone wall if you're going to cover it up with shrubbery? I think this is a big mistake here. They could maybe plant one row, but this is too much by having stone walls that you cover up. Good landscaping and good design, good house design should always peacefully coexist. They should shake hands and be friends. They shouldn't be duking it out all the time like that. This is in Brookside. We did the colors and we added details, added this, shrubbery. And then this was kind of ugly looking. The two-car garage back here is so close to the house. So we planted this to kind of soften the transition between the two. And so that's over here. Again, variation. This helps by putting street trees in. Look how desolate this looks. We have plants now growing over the edge of this. This is brick paving, ground covers, much more friendly, much nicer looking. If you put in brick, the sawtooth edging, this keeps the driveway fairly clean, and you have all these ground covers and nice perennial plants. This one lady in West Plaza didn't want any yard to mow, and I kind of tried to talk her into at least a little bit of yard, but she went out, so I made it very natural looking. These are pathways of monkey grass. So it wasn't like a jungle. There's something about too many plants, so big sweeps of the same material, big sweeps here, big sweep here, good repetition. And this is a different property. This is grass here, grass here. I often don't like the look of a sidewalk to the front door, always going over to the driveway. But because people park in their garages, here's where you saw that I cut into the driveway and put this in. I put the planting between these two garage doors, but I put a pathway coming out here to the street. So if you have guests over, they park on the street, they can walk up here rather than walking up the driveway and into the house like that. Again, a little bit of manicuring. This is too much. It's a jungle. I have an attractive stone wall if you can't see it. This was our yard in Hyde Park before we moved. And different textures and different shapes. This is a mugo pine. This is a juniper. This is boxwood. And Edward Scissorhand is a pretty nice guy. It was one of my favorite movies, not because it was the greatest plot, but because I thought it was so funny. And so Paul became Edward Scissorhand in our neighborhood. And these are three birds with their eyes looking at, this is a duck, a red bird, and an owl. They're looking at you. And then this is two baby red birds with doorknob eyes looking at you.
What do you use for eyes?
Doorknobs and what are they called? Shots. You can go to different liquor stores and get these. They're a little bit liquor, and I think they're not total liquor. They're roundish buzz balls. Okay, and then that's what those are on the two red birds. And right next to the two baby red birds that are over here is the willy worm, and he's smiling at you, and he has doorknob eyes. So, and here's a swan in our yard, and here's a spiral bush. This was our house in Hyde Park. Here's that brick driveway that I had put in. Anyway, how about a big hand for your trees and things in the yard? And trimming things aesthetically, where you can see this wonderful railing. Japanese maple was just a big blob, and then we went in and trimmed it so that people could sit on the porch, have some privacy, but not have the house overwhelmed. And in conclusion, this is the last slide. What is green landscaping? Plant indigenous, have a plan. Come up with period landscaping that's appropriate. Every style, Frank Lloyd Wright's prairie style, mid-century modern, new homes, old homes, are all particular periods. And then decide how elaborate you can get, but make your property memorable and green. So thank you all for listening, and I'm hoping you can take some of these away. And otherwise, he's going to have to take them all home with him and read every one of them, and I'll call him up and make sure that he understood every magazine. Chad?
Any questions? Here, let me get another mic out.
I have a question. You talked about never use cypress mulch, but between the other types of mulch, not rock, what do you recommend?
Cedar mulch is the most common. It grows everywhere. If you look, yeah. Yeah, if you look along the highways of Kansas City and Missouri and Kansas, cedar is growing everywhere, and is
And what
kind of
size? You can get them in various sizes.
I would do whatever seems appropriate to you. I personally like a little bit of dyed or charcoal, cocoa, and it's really a lot of that stuff. People freak out over everything. You don't need to freak out over everything because there's some real things to freak out about in our society, but you don't have to freak about a little bit of dye in the wood chips, and it quiets it down. Since I'm into color, darker kind of makes it look like the earth, keeps moisture in the soil. What?
Never recommend rock instead of chip.
I have pathways around my house instead of having sidewalks or even brick. I have pea gravel. Yeah, our daughter has seen that. We have it framed with brick, and then we have pea gravel growing. Other questions? I know you have a question on your mind because you have that inquisitive look.
Wondering if you've done anything with worm composting.
We used to have at our old house. It was the backyard. I would rake the yard of all these leaves. And right at the back of our property was a chain link fence, and then the yard suddenly went like this. I fill that every year with leaves and debris. I never in my life packed those Home Depot bags with leaves and had it hauled away because you're just throwing things away. I don't know if you realize this, but composting will actually have it's warm because it's actually decaying. In fact, it's surprising when you put your hand down there and how warm it is, even in winter. Did you know that?
Yes.
It's warm. Yeah. So that's what I recommend. And some people get into they have to have a machine for everything. I call it the Presto Burger Maker syndrome, where people have to have a particular machine for everything. And you turn it around and it's boom, boom, boom. I prefer just coming up with a low spot in the yard and then raking things there. And sometimes I have leaves that are good size. I get them often from neighboring properties. And when they dry out, it's surprising how quickly you can just crumple them up with your hands too. Or even if you send it to a particular place, have a walk at it too. Or send the lawnmower over it too. Yeah.
So Paul, we've got a question from online, and the question was from earlier in your presentation. It says, what about thornless honey locusts for our area?
They do well. Yeah.
Okay.
And thorn type locust as well too. Most people don't want it though, because they don't like to be bitten. I like cacti, but I don't want it in my yard because I don't want anything that bites back.
All right, anyone online, you can unmute if you have other questions. All right.
Do you plant milkweed? I want to ask you.
We have before. It's great. Butterflies go able for
Yeah.
Also, I suggest that you put out as many bird houses as you can, particularly wren houses. It's amazing what these birds will do to get rid of mosquitoes and negative bugs in the environment. And some people will get eggs of ladybugs, things like that, and then put those in their yard and they hatch, and then you have lots of ladybugs. You can also buy larvae of monarch butterflies and things like that. And swallowtail butterflies, they're beautiful.
I once ordered a box of praying mantis in their egg cases, and they came out, and the next day they were gone. They must have eaten each other.
How many were in?
It was an box with egg cases of praying mantis.
How many were in there?
I don't know, but there were several egg cases. We saw them coming out. There were many of them, very small, and within a day they were gone.
Oh, no.
And you had the lid on it all the time?
No, we just put them out in the garden.
Well, they moved to the garden, Jerry.
Well, but they weren't in the garden anymore.
Well, they said, I don't want
The neighbors
I don't
have.
like, I don't like his yard because what do you do that's wrong? You put gasoline on me.
Yeah,
Sign
that
on
was
it, things like that. So we're leaving this gasoline filled
Yeah.
lot here.
Well, that was a different yard.
All
I was
right.
trying to get out of it.
Well, let's go ahead and formally close things out. Let's give Paul a round of applause. And I'm sure,
If you want to take any of your time, you're welcome to. If you don't want to take any of it.
thank you all for being here online. Thanks for being here. And I'm sure Paul is definitely willing to come to your houses for a small fee and make your house look as beautiful as these. And hope to see you on the 20th. So let's give Paul a round of applause. Thank you very much. Yeah,
Do you still go to sleep sometimes?
You got another question?
I however, I gave away my ticket. for this week,
Actually,
so I'm gonna play some fast.